The manga starts introducing the world belonging to women. Not only they fight for both their nations and their people, their victors' spoils included men, turning the gender norm upside down. The birth rate of men is only 1 out of every 9 women. This resulted in men relegated to a private role and take no part in public life. As such, the wealthy with power collects and plunder many men as they can, leaving others without any, will share whatever men are left with their sisters and neighbors. Seems like a win to me, guys, to be honest. The value of a man's body in a sexual sense vastly greater than that of a woman in this world. Thus they're jealously guarded, and their keepers, which are women, highly coveted by all and are often sold for large sums. With such a cruel and terrible world, but when the MC, a man like him who still gets head over heels for beautiful women, is still a complete deviant. The story formally starts as the MC bows his head in what looks like a castle. It's been already 2 years since he took over his kingdom. But no matter how many times this happens, he could never get used to getting an audience with the Queen, Her Majesty. All of this was due to the little girl. He has to go through this. It's then revealed he became the advisor for the second Princess Valor. He tries to not think of anything about this situation due to the nerve-wracking atmosphere. He doesn't want to raise his head and say anything, as at that point the trial will begin. He doesn't have any opinions to share, as he only carries the will of his mother and the hope of countless ancestors who rule his land before him. The queen of this country, named Lysenlot, is a calm and dignified mother of 32 years old who has 2 daughters, and upon glancing upon her appearance, his rising sword hurts. He tries his best to pull himself together with a straight face. He is wary of making the slightest mistake in an audience with the queen, as he wouldn't go unscathed. The queen questioned he has something he takes issues of, but in reality the MC couldn't bear to handle her outfit, trying hard to hide his rising sword in front of the Queen Majesty. The queen insists he spoke up. With no other choice, he brace himself. He doesn't want to get humiliated, as in this world an individual like him getting his sword to rise upon seeing the opposite gender without anything on would result being labeled as disgrace. Add to the fact that if they ever found out that he's already on full mast from this, they would ridicule him as an nymphomaniac, resulting his parents and ancestors, but also the people of his land, would become a laughing stock for preserving honor of them all. He is wearing a chastity belt in secret. The queen is showing way too much even in his old world. The queen, on the other hand, doesn't pay attention and only talks about the second princess raid against the bandits and to claim victory. He questioned as to why is the second princess is being forced to this. As this was happening, the MC clenches his fist to induce pain as his sword hurts from being too hard. He could only ponder his frustration against the queen swinging all of her private parts in full view. At this point he seems to be reaching his limits. He doesn't want to sully the name of his late mother, as the battle of will strength is between the belt and his sword. Eventually one or the other is gonna break. With his quick thinking, he hid behind the second princess, trying to avert his situation and ease up the tense situation, coming up with a quick and easy commotion. With the situation turning into his favor, he could safely avert his eyes from the queen and buy at least a few minutes for his sword to recover. The second princess became flustered upon being grabbed, whereas the queen showed her authority and power, as it's a noble's duty to fulfill eliminating bandits. The MC doesn't even bother looking at her assets, which would result in his chastity belt breaking. The queen stood up, showcasing her massive assets, asking the Emi to kneel and heed her words. Upon raising his eyes, he managed to catch a glimpse of some oysters in front of his face. The queen questioned and raged if eliminating bandits is beyond their duty, as she stood still, showcasing her large mountains and the lips underneath her oysters. This left the protagonist of our story to bleed from his nose and mouth as he couldn't hold on anymore. His thoughts wander, wanting to dominate and pounce her hard and fast to the point of extinction. Upon seeing his monstrous muscle figure, the queen got alerted, making her guards be on high alert. Asking Faus to calm down, the queen, nervous, took a deep breath, praising Faus and truly valuing his abilities. His great achievements of assisting her first daughter Anastasia, and the soldiers of his land tipping the tide of war against Willendorf, and slaying tons of barbarians and dueling against their commander. She very well understood his feelings for her daughter but asks that he calms down. Hearing this somehow made Faus' rising sword to settle down a bit, confused and doesn't understand much as he only cared about not being labeled as a pervert of the country. The queen is firm, not changing his mind when it comes to the nature of her first battle, thus declaring her royal decree. Faus, hearing this, could only agree, asking to leave the room and her audience. As the queen agrees, Faus politely abide by her words, only pondering that they both barely made it. Both him and his sword managed to get through intact, both survival-wise and chastity-wise. The second princess exclaims of being grateful about becoming her advisor in the first place. On the other hand, the protagonist could only ponder, feeling the same way, as he's grateful she didn't inherit her mother the queen those fat melons. Later, thanks to her advisor speaking up so defiantly on the second princess' behalf, she was granted permission to withdraw as much from the national budget as she saw fit for their expedition in eliminating the bandits. The treasure, which she seemingly was all on her mind, but the truth was that Queen Lizenlot's thoughts after having laid eyes on Polydoro were somewhere else down below the pants. The queen realized her mistake, seeing Faus appointed as her daughter's advisor sometime before the Great War. He seems to not have any feelings on it at all, but has fire in his eyes. Whether it was an act or not, he stood firm against the queen for the sake of her honor. Upon seeing as Faus is the hero of the Great War himself, he must have felt like it was an insult being sent to fight mere bandits. She saw Faus as a male knight with a long list of achievements is proving no easy task even for a queen herself. As the Knight of Wrath who is spurred to rage by his emotions, she sees him as an individual, that not someone that even her can afford to take lightly. Not having the intentions to belittle him, she sees value and honor in him. All the queen could ever ponder was her daughter's first battle against mere bandits. It's her plan of ensuring a smooth transition of handing her the throne of succession. She sees the danger and unnecessary use of the throne's strength to build the power base of her daughter, which is the sole reason she issues the royal decree. But her perspective changed when he saw his face, which was full of passionately enraged. Calmed down before he left her sight, seeing that warm and gentle smile he gave her daughter, which is the same kind of smile her late husband used to have. She now realized that all of his anger up until then has merely been an act of his. Her mistake was now giving her to her second daughter instead of the first one. And seeing Faus treat a powerless princess as a friend and equal without any calculation or cunning schemes, she herself as the queen found herself longing for it as well. She can't resist being attracted to the heart of a man like that. A man who owes and is loved by all just like her late husband. And it seems like the taste in men is something that's passed down from mother to daughter. This left the first princess to also grow her obsession with Faus, and if she interfere with the second daughter's life, it might become dangerous. And should a struggle break out between the two of them, the mismatched patchwork of the first daughter's supports wouldn't stand against the second daughter's legion of veterans. Not to mention that the second daughter's advisor is Duchess Astarte, the third in line for the throne in this, fought alongside Faus in the war. Her second daughter being a good and kind person. But there are people who always shunned her, and she doesn't doubt if the worst would happen they would show her no mercy. Leaving her with a final statement, and a heed of warning, that should they fail in their duties to defeat these bandits, she shall have Lord Faus dismissed as her advisor and be placed under command of the first princess. Although the queen is confident that she won't fail this mission appointed to her, she had a troubled mind questioning why is the situation suddenly turning dim. She sees herself as the only spare for the first princes, and even now her advisor Faus might get taken away. Labeled as mediocre, she should have expected this to happen, even though she was the one who found him first 2 years ago. At the start of their encounter, she became arrogant even at the age of 12, wanting Faus to become her advisor, even at the age of 19. Faus didn't give her any attention at first, seeing as he always doesn't have any idea what she's talking about. He also questioned what's in it for him. This gave her a long time to think about, suddenly coming up with the idea that for years Faus has been trying to get an audience with her mother, which if she asked for it he could have one. Hearing this made him laugh, as it would greatly help him, even going as far in offering money. As she kept on offering him everything she could think of. Faus looked at her calm, questioning why did he call out to him, seeing as how he's a big and ugly guy. She then asks how many heads he has taken so far. With no definite answer past 100, all she could see in him was his strength and being the strongest. Hearing this he agreed, but she has to make do, seeing as men aren't allowed to join after all. With this they formally form a bond as her advisor, as the two people who can never be number one. Faus took her hand, swearing himself to her. She swore to herself even if she has nothing, she won't give up Faus that easily. Later Faus is pondering all alone by himself. He became honest to himself as almost nothing has come out of him becoming an advisor to the second princess. He was supposed to be allowed to just go back guarding the border of his land. But amidst this he got swept up in a huge invasion, and war not long after. Not to mention the pain in the ass and uselessly flashing of the queen. And now he has been assigned as a babysitter for the princess, as she has her first battle against bandits. It's then revealed that becoming an advisor for her was seriously a huge mistake. Meanwhile on the side, two men cosplaying dressed in a maid outfit is gossiping about him, calling him out for all the muscles he got. They badmouthed him, which Faus only sees these kind of guys are the men that are prized in this world. The reality of this world is in this country delicate and petite boys are what's considered attractive, and a big guy like him is an ugly eyesore towards them. Nothing in this world or even the country makes any sense. One moment you're being shown a strip of the queen, then the next you're being badmouthed in front of your face. He finds all of these a huge pain, especially for his sword. All he wanted now is to hurry up and find a suitable wife so he could go back home to his domain already. It's then revealed that her mother, the last ruler of the Polidoro domain, was a strange person, and his father died not long after he was born. It seems like her relatives were constantly telling her to remarry and give birth to a girl who could be the heir, but she always rejected them. It seems her mother loved his father very much even after death, which even though he was a boy she always instructed him in governance, territory management, and swordsplay, which in this world should be taught to girls. And ever since he was born he has memories of his past life. He assumed this was normal for heir and never questioned it. As a boy all he could ever do was accept it, and did his best as a way to try and get used to this new world. H often ended up studying long into the night, and the training became especially tough. Even though he knew that this world of skewed gender ratios, it wasn't until he later learned that the idea of a male knight was practically unheard of. When he was 15 years old on his first expedition he questioned the head squire named Helga about it, which resulted in her barely looking him in the eye. Later on his mother's body began to weaken, and she knew herself that he doesn't have long to live for, but despite this she constantly forced herself up from bed, just to teach her only son and man to survive in this kind of world. Later on it was when he reached the age of 20 that his mother's condition suddenly worsened, as if she realized she had nothing left to teach Faus. At the young age of 36 she passed away, and only after his mother was gone that he fully understood who she was. He sees her as a strange woman who refused to remarry and instead raised her son both a successor and a knight. A mother who loved him unconditionally, even whittled her life away after working tireless to make sure he could live on. Back to the present he couldn't stand the mockery faced towards his mother. He doesn't care if they badmouth his body ugly or repulsive, But her mother, the people of the Polydor territory, meant a lot towards him, and shall not be disrespected by anyone else. He then confronted the men, using his finger to put some pressure against their face. This left the petite men troubled, warning him against his actions, as they are under the first Princess Duchess' watch. Faus doesn't care much, hearing this, pushing his hard-muscled finger all the way up to his nostril, calling them pathetic excuses of men. The altercation soon got interrupted by the first Duchess Astartes. Seeing the horrible situation, she exclaims of a horrible mood. She exclaims of having these boys work in the royal palace for her, and demands an explanation from Lord Faus Polydoro. We are then introduced to Von Astarte as the Duchess, considered third in line to the throne, and a high-ranking member of the extended royal family. She has a great deal of trust invested in her by the commoners of her domain. The womanly boys suddenly pleaded help, seeing her, accusing Faus of assaulting them, as they stood behind the Duchess. Faus revealed, hearing them bad-mouth his own mother, and picking him up from the enemy country Willendorf. The Duchess, with a serious face, questioned if his words were true. The womanly boys suddenly felt fear, seeing their gossip and bad-mouth came to light, using the reasoning that Faus was in the other faction that led them to throwing words against him. The Duchess Astartes gave no mercy and a punishment befitting their actions. Astartes has no room for mercy, whether it's an or a woman, as the goddess of war and massacre. Like Faus is a veteran of war against the enemy country, she also has got huge melons. She apologized for the altercation, which Faus doesn't seem to mind, being upset whom he fought alongside the war, not to mention her status outrank his. It's then revealed that the Duchess Astartes is a close friend buddy of Faus. In the fire of battle which transcends status and politics, they are forged together even if there is bad blood. The two of them are an exception to the rules and get along well. In reality, to put in another way, the second princess faction is so weak that it's not even really worth caring about. She got a warrior spirit, an easygoing personality, and really like her a lot. But with some hidden minor caveats. It seems the Duchess has a soft spot for his wonderful cake behind. It's then revealed she likes to touch him in places, and compliments him if his cake has gotten thicker since the last time they met. Faus doesn't seem to have his cake be touched, which the Duchess seems to have reflected on his past actions as a lady, and refrained from doing this in public, or else it would be interpreted in some other meaning. The MC doesn't seem to mind this, as it doesn't matter how many people is around. She just doesn't seem to care much, feeling his cake whenever she pleases. Faus still claims his cake is still flat and hard like a guy, but it's then revealed that Astartes, the Duchess of all people in this manga, is a huge cake lover, and is qualified to say that his cake has the perfect shape and feel to it, enjoying its softness. She shared that they already shed blood and sweat together on the battlefield, questioning why doesn't he let her have him already. Faus seemed flustered, revealing of saving himself for his future wife. Hearing this made the Duchess to settle things of making him her husband. Faus seems reluctant, as his domain might get absorbed through their children, which then she proposed having him as her lover, and have their kid be a heir to his territory. Hearing this made him laugh, although it doesn't seem too bad, as he doesn't want to marry into her family and see the Polydor domain get absorbed. But being a lover is another different story, as he could still be allowed to rule his lands and raise the kid as his heir. Even then, if that happens, he might come under heavy criticism for having a child outside of marriage. The Duchess exclaims there's no woman out there who can match her knowledge or stamina, revealing herself to be still a pure maiden. Faus agreed they are a match, pondering if that is a big deal for her. The Duchess wanted her first time to be with him, asking if she could pay him to play exercise in bed already. The protagonist couldn't hold still, as if anything he would be the one happy to pay for it. He seemingly couldn't contain himself upon hearing her words, which upon thinking about it seriously, he really does fancy her. Always being a melon-loving man, he is not really sure how he has been holding back until now. As the Duchess seemingly closes in for a smooch, Faus could only embrace and think about his mother claiming to bring their child to pay respects on her grave, but a sudden hand is seen grabbing out, stopping the Duchess with her almighty melons, questioning the Duchess' actions, leaving Faus to be bewildered. The woman that stopped and appeared out of nowhere is Princess Anastasia, the first in line to the throne. In the war against Willendorf, she led an army with her Duchess advisor, along with supporting contingent led by Faus Polidoro to repel barbarians. She is labeled a genius of strategy who overturned the odds to defeat 1,000 women with only 500 of her own. She confronted Astartes. They both smashed their melons to one another. The first princess got up to her face, pondering about their conversation. The Duchess casually exclaims of sorting out their particulars of him becoming her lover. Hearing this made the first princess flustered, calling it bullshit, as she won't allow such thing to occur. The Duchess apologizes and pushes her away, as this is a private matter between the two of them. She also hinted that Lord Faus Polidoro wasn't all against it either. In disbelief, she scolded him as he can't do it this way. She revealed the royal family would never allow his family to get intertwined with Lord Polidoro as they are from different factions. The Duchess argued, saying it's just for appearance anyways, and people doesn't care much, as the second princess faction must well not exist even then. The first princess exclaimed she isn't good enough for the likes of men like Faus. She hinted towards him, asking to quickly turn her down. Although hesitant, he seems delighted hearing two women fight over him. She asks that it's rude to turn his eyes away from her like that. She then brought up her previous offer, wondering if he gave it some thought as to resign as the second princess advisor and work for her already. Hearing this, he politely refused her offer. She seems interested to hear his reasoning, as there is no future into the second princess faction. Although he agrees to his words, since the first princess is definitely the next queen, but even so he preferred to keep being the second princess advisor, stating he has his own heart too. The first princess exclaims that he is one hell of a free man. It's then revealed this is the kind of man she also wanted. Her father didn't treat him as the first princess, but simply as his own daughter of the kingdom. He supports the people of his land and treats all the troops under his command as equals. Faus has the same kind of heart as her father did. And on the bloody battlefield, he personally told her that he was a little scared of her, sharing his vulnerabilities with her, and a troubled smile o'er his face. But to her he's a strong and warm, gentle like a great son. Faus Polidoro exclaims that his answer wasn't good enough to turn her down, but the first princess minds she find his words to be wonderful and perfect, from her perfect first love. With no other choice, she could only let him be a freeman, leaving with the Duchess bidding farewell and to tell stories about their expedition. As the two left, the first princess was told to give up on Faus Polidoro already, exclaiming to have him all by herself. The first princess, on the other hand, plans to become a queen and force Faus to become her husband. The Duchess grinned, exclaiming she would never get Faus that way, since if he becomes the first princess husband when she became a queen, his land and people would be absorbed into the crown lands of the royal family, clearly indicating that if she snatched the place he holds so dearly, there is not going to be any place for her in his heart either. Hearing this made the first princess be troubled, pondering if she has to give up on her love. The Duchess corrected her words, explaining Faus is bound to his ancestral land and he would do anything to protect it. With an evil smile, she floated like a maniac, exclaiming of sharing Polidoro between the two of them and ensure that they ensure one child born being able to inherit the Polidoro's lands. Hearing this made the first princess nervous, as two noble women sharing the same mind, pondering if they have lost their mind. The Duchess turned her words around, as it's clear plain as day, she wanted to be pounded by innocent little ghetto giant Faus. The first princess became flustered. As she doesn't want to sully Faus, the Duchess called her a liar, as she knew her well enough to push Faus down and go down on his cake. even calling out her fetish for being chicken-holed by some woman she never even met. With no other choice, she gave in, not wanting to bother with Faus right before the second princess campaign, but with limited time, she agreed on making the protagonists to be their lovers. The Duchess is overjoyed with their plans, waiting for the second princess battle. After then they will spread their legs wide open for the taking, and making sure to promise to protect his territory, as this will make him go out of his way to eat them out like cheesecake EDP style. Afterward we transition to the second princess opening a bunch of letters. To her surprise, she suddenly became pale, remembering something, asking Faus to have a meeting later after she finished her work. It's then revealed she had to pay hotel fees for the 15 people under her care. Back to the Polidoro's mansion, a certain merchant of a guild arrived for business. Not wanting to be intimidated in the front door, she is welcomed by a butler. Upon arriving inside, she complimented Lord Faus of being bestowed a mansion in the Queen's name. It's then revealed she came here as the exclusive purveyor for Faus, as her merchant guild has been working with the Polidoros since his mother's generation, and thankfully due to this reason it was all that it took to get her in the foot of his door with him. The protagonist welcomed her warmly upon arriving, where she ponders that even if her guild is barely middle road at best, she hopes to stay on his good side, then their trading company would reach the sky. She revealed pulling all sorts of strings to fulfill his requests from time to time, and no matter what happens she is confident in making it happen this time. Lord Polidoro apologized for the sudden call as it's an urgent matter as their conversation can't leave this room. He then whispered his problems of his sword rising and its grinding right up the chastity belt, hurting like hell. Although she revealed that it was custom made to fit his size, it's not something easily adjusted. The protagonist ponders if he just has to live with having his sword be exposed for the world to see, or eventually snapping his sword in half. The merchant put the matter aside, questioning why does he gets a sword rising often in the first place. Lord Faus seems to explain it happens to men just normal at times. Hearing this made them think of it's a troublesome, which he ponders it's more troublesome for a girl to talk about it as well. He wonders if he could request a new one and maybe something bigger. He became troubled if he ever get found out when he has to dress up as a noble. He knew if he was one of those pretty boys he could maybe explain it's for his protection, but he doesn't have a wife to guard his manhood, or any woman that would push him. The merchant exclaims hearing that the Duchess Astarte is pursuing him aggressively. Faus argues that it's just her idea of a joke, and even if she's serious they could not be really lovers, as sooner or later she will inevitably have to get married to someone suitable to her position, and couldn't thought of doing so that way, which he exclaims looking for a wife on his own. Only problem he faced is he's not popular with the ladies at all. The merchant could only ever dialogue to herself that Lord Faus was all wrong, as he is labeled the warrior who saved the country and have no problems about his lineage of a long standing of knights, and there is no way he is unpopular as he thinks. She is also positive that certain parties must be sabotaging him on the romance front in some way. And what's more, her merchant senses are screaming at herself that Duchess Astartes is far more serious than Lord Faus realizes. If it means she could get her hands on Lord Polidoro, she would be more than delighted to never take a legal husband, but what's even more bothering her is the mansion itself. She doubted that there would be no way the second princess could organize this for him, as the queen might have become influence, or really a personal gift from Her Majesty. She ponders if they were simply protective of Lord Polidoro and wants to keep him in a cage. If it then somehow gets out that I corrected his misunderstanding, her head would be rolling in the ground by the royal family. But above all, she is terrified of drawing the demon Duchess Astarte as she heard rumors of the war against Willendorf. Even though she could outright tell him the reality right now, and even get a lifetime shot to become the merchant to the paramour of the current or future queen, she rather go bankrupt rather than going head to head on the bad side of the Duchess. As Lord Polidoro questioned her thoughts if she was listening, She ponders it's her bad habit of getting lost in her thoughts, and right now just want to get on his good side. She then exclaims of maybe not trying to hide his rising sword, being called nuts and crazy by him. Hearing this just made her smile nervously. We will continue the story soon for part 2. Stay subscribed to watch the next episode.